So that was the beginning of my awareness. And I would then go, after 3 years in Nicaragua, I would go to Guatemala, and I was there at an important time in the Catholic Church when Vatican II was happening, and the radical changes in the Catholic Church would happen, and it would become part of the Reformation, and part of it would be. And we would begin working on liberation theology and identify with the poor, begin listening to people and learning from people. And I would begin thinking about structural issues. So you need to work for justice, basically. That's what you need to do with your life. That's what we were working with the students about, So when I came back, I knew I had to work to change U.S. foreign policy, but I didn't know how to do that. I mean, I'd never worked here in the U.S. It would eventually lead to starting Witness for Peace. So my eye-opening happened long before Witness for Peace. And when we started Witness for Peace, I knew enough, having been a missionary, that the problem is here. The problem isn't in Latin America. The problem is the structures that we've set up in the U.S. and the political structure that supports the economic structure. So what I realized was you need to get U.S. citizens down and have an intense experience and learn from the Latin Americans, and then come home to change our system. So that's what Witness for Peace is about. We don't go to change, to build schools. We don't go to help poor people. We go to learn from people, and then what our government is doing, and we come home to change our policies. So it's quite different than it would be if you went on a church mission trip or something, where you go and you feel good about building a school or a clinic or whatever. Nothing really changes, really. We went there to work to look at the impact of trade, because the January 1st, 1994, the North American Free Trade Agreement had been passed, and we knew it would devastate the farmers. So we began working in Mexico to look at trade issues. And I would lead the first delegation from the U.S. to start that whole process of looking at the impact of trade. And we would go to Mexico City, we would go to Oaxaca, and we would go then to the border in El Paso to see what already was happening. And then over these years, Witness for Peace has continued our presence in Mexico. And we would document that what they had told us about NAFTA was that it would decrease poverty, it would increase employment, and it would decrease immigration. It did all the opposite. Part of the problem has become, used to be farmers and their children would work on their farms and make a living and make enough money to be able to buy school supplies and do all the other things they had to do. Now small farmers are bankrupt. The children of those small farmers have no work. So what are we finding happening now in Mexico? Well, you're finding all kinds of drug trafficking and terrible things are going on, violence going on along that border. Partly because there's no work for young people. The ones that used to work in the farm, there's nothing for them to do. And so if they don't immigrate, it's just causing all kinds of problems for the Mexican economy. In the U.S., we need to change our immigration laws, but we need to change our trade laws. And we need to do both those things. We need to have immigration laws that allow people to come through the ports of entry to work. And they need to have laws that are fairer than the H-2A work laws. As you probably know, the H-2A workers, if they come and work with a decent farmer, perhaps it's okay. But if they work with somebody who will exploit the heck out of them, which is some of the workers, they can't protest, they can't do anything. I met farm workers in North Carolina. I met one who came out of a farm near Benson, and he had been held. They weren't being paid, they were being given alcohol and drugs. They were being watched, somebody with a rifle. He was being held in slavery. And this worker, I don't remember his name now because he walked with me in the pilgrimage. He walked into North Carolina, into Raleigh. Eventually he went to the ARC shelter, and he was helped by the Episcopal Farm Worker Ministry to bring suit with the help of the FBI for slavery against one of these crew leader types. And he was willing to stay in place long enough to bring this to go to trial, and the guy was found guilty of slavery. But that's one crew leader of how many crew leaders. If you talk to them, which I have, you say, why are you coming? Why are you risking coming through the border? Well, they'll say, we're risking it because our families are starving. They don't want to leave their families and their villages. And some of them, most of them, if I ask, where are you from, which I have when I've been at the border, I ask, who are you? Who are you from? They're from Chiapas, which is the poorest state in Mexico. Or they're from Oaxaca, which is another poor indigenous state. Some of them don't speak Spanish. They speak indigenous languages. I mean, it's beyond belief. And then the Guatemalans, I mean, they're coming north because of the U.S. trade policies, right? And again, it's just ludicrous, you know. And so what are you finding now? In Guatemala, in Honduras, in El Salvador, not so much in Nicaragua, you're having tremendous civil unrest, growth in poverty, gangs, drugs, all the stuff that we see in Mexico, only worse because they're smaller countries. Get into heaven, for a wealthy person to get into heaven, and a camel to go through the eye of a needle. I mean, it's, you know, it's rather clear, you know. So that living simply, you know, we're taught in this society that you will find happiness if you own a big car, if you have a fancy job, if you have a beautiful house, if you have a lot of stuff. Well, that's not really what gives you joy, you know. You'll have joy if you serve others, if you work with others, if you work for change, you know. The purpose is to transform people and transform policy.